Coming up on the show, a Legacy League's first, I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe all the seeds are set. And so we're going to see if the guys can find a way to prove me wrong. But going into the last week, very rarely is every team locked into their spot. So we can, with 99% certainty, I'm usually pretty good at this, but of course, if something, I don't even think if something crazy happens, we can mess this up. But we'll see. We're going to break down Week 8, get ready for Week 9, and what is a week that has some good matchups and, like I said, doesn't really matter for the playoffs, but it'll give us a little time to watch teams, know who they're going to play most likely in the quarterfinals, and get ready for the playoffs in the Winter 2025 Rhode Island League. Aidan, Trent, and Burke standing by. Let's get to the actual show, but just a little preview, and the playoffs are here, so get excited, everybody. All right, let's get to the show.
Yeah, this is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah.
Week 8 didn't really live up to the hype. I'll be honest. Washed Up Boys, Lob City. One team couldn't buy a shot. Road Dogs kind of took care of the halfway crooks, and it was a surprising 10 o'clock game. Everybody was getting ready for bed. Yeah, let's wrap this one up and get out of here. And the Muffin Tops had the ball with a chance for a three-pointer to win it. We'll talk about it because I said it after. You have to shoot a three. I'm allowed to be critical of them once. And they drove to the basket, got fouled, and missed both free throws, and it was a run out and the clock runs out, and they never really had a chance to win. They had a chance to tie, which is sometimes just as good. We're trying to win. We're trying to win the damn game, right? Especially when you get to the playoffs. But let's get to Week 8. Let's break down all the games. We'll start with the undefeated matchup because I think the most is there. I mentioned it, Burke, Aidan, and Trent standing by. All three of them saw this one in person, and it was Lob City earning the number 1 seed, defeating the second team in the standings, the Washed Up Boys, who were both previously undefeated, 63-46. I'll do the stats in a second. Let's go to Trent. Everyone can talk about this one, but it was the Washed Up Boys getting open looks. And I haven't looked at the box score. It's now a tradition. I don't look at the box scores before we start the show. It's more fun for me. But they did not make enough shots and were missing open ones, especially early. Lob City built a lead. I could see in Cody's face, he was getting, it's only 16 with like 3 to go, and weirder things have happened when the free throw game gets weird. Lob City holds on. So, Cody was like inside. He was like, guys, the game's not over. And his teammates are throwing lobs and like screwing around. But they hold on. They win. The Washed Up Boys obviously rounded into form a little bit, but it's too little, too late. Trent, was it just that? And of course, never against my team. Jared and I are sitting over there. Teams don't miss against the purple team. But, they go into this big time matchup and are unable to buy a shot, Trent.
Yeah, listen, I think the Washed Up Boys are still a great team, but I think there's levels to this stuff, man. Lob City, there's a reason why they're champs. They have the experience, and they came out to prove everybody that we still the top dogs out here. Record, it doesn't matter if this team was undefeated. Defensively, they slowed down every single player on the Washed Up Boys, which you just don't really see. Field goal percentage, everybody they were shooting 25%. You got Kashawn Harris, 25%. Hendel shooting 30%. These are their top players. Their stats, it has 13 points, but when you're taking 12 attempts a game, that's not very efficient. And that's just credit to their defense for the Lob City. And the crazy thing is they didn't even have one of their best players, too, in Victor. Victor wasn't even there. And Noah was just proving why he should be the MVP of this league, dominating offensively and getting everybody involved. Of course, Cody Crawford, who's the leader of the team. It was an excellent showing, man. They definitely put a statement victory out there. But I think Washed Up Boys will recover next week. But I'm going to give a lot of credit to Lob City. They were missing open shots, but Lob City's defense was just locked in. And they were just pretty much locked in and slowed down this whole team.
I'm going to Aidan next because he's seen enough of these, hyped up big-time matchups between two teams that are worthy of being the top 2 teams this season for sure. They've proved it throughout the whole season. 5 of 28 for 3 for the Washed Up Boys. They got out-rebounded. Lob City had 5 guys. Again, no Victor Cashew Jr. Lob City, 56% from the floor, and they made 8 of 15 threes. The Washed Up Boys, 31 48.3% field goal in this game. So it wasn't just the threes not falling, unable to really get anything going. Aidan, we've seen the washed up boys now, and this was, again, their first time against Lob City. Was it just not making shots? I mean, not that they weren't ready for this game. I don't think that's fair. But was it just like everything at once? It's still basketball. We say it all the time. It's still like, all right, this is a big game. We're going to have to execute and be, as at our best to be in this game against a Lob City team. Was it just that? Was it just the first time facing this team and kind of everything hitting at once?
I think it was a mix of a lot of stuff. Like you said, like Lob City's a juggernaut. They've been here before, 8-time champs. They know what they're doing. Now, the washed up boys, they had a really poor week last week, so it kind of trickled over into this. And Trent said Lob City's defense was great, and it was. But washed up boys only scored 3 points in the first quarter. They were down 15 heading into the second, and when you only score single digits in one quarter, you kind of have to rush everything. And I think that's what eventually happened is they were down by so much most of the game that they rushed a lot of their shots. Like you said, it's Lob City. They're juggernauts. And I think the washed up boys, they're 7-1, still a great team, or 6-1, sorry. 7-1, 6-1, I forgot the number. But they're still a great team. But like you said, I don't know if you can prepare for Lob City. So you really can't be unprepared or prepared for them because you never, Lob City is going to have 4 or 5 guys and they're going to do the dirty work and they're going to play all the roles they need to play. But washed up boys coming in, I don't think they were too focused on that. They had a poor week last week. They should have improved on that. But again, they came out flat in the first quarter, and that was the story of the rest of the game.
Sometimes it's just a bad matchup, right? So, and I don't think that's the case with this because I think these teams match up pretty well. Sometimes it's seeing a team for the first time. It's like, oh, that's the defensive pressure. Like, oh, this is different than we've seen in other teams. And what I was thinking about this while you were talking, what came to mind is what the Road Dogs did to everybody last playoffs, right? And so they were the 9 seed, 8 seed, I believe. They were 1 game away from being a 5 seed, so it's a little, the seed, they weren't really a true 9 seed, but they were. And it was their defense, and it was their intensity from the tip, jumping on people, and then trying to play from behind is difficult, and that's kind of what the washed up boys faced in this one, right? Like, okay, our shots aren't falling. Now we're down 12. We're not playing a team that's going to, let us stay in the game when we're not playing our best. And then you're playing catch-up, and everything kind of snowballs from there. Burke, go wherever you'd like, and I'll throw some stats really quick. Noah West led the way with 26 and 12. Cody Crawford, 4 of 4 from 3, 16 points for him. Almar Sabat, I think, was more focused on the defense, a little quiet offensively, but 11 points, and shout out Lob City doing their thing. Kashawn Harrison, 13, and Hendel LaRoe with 12. 12 rebounds as well for Hendel, but 1 of 9 for 3, and he was the one. Both of those guys had really, really good looks. They were executing. It wasn't like they were, not looking like themselves. They were executing. They were finding the right shot, getting the open shot, and they weren't falling, Burke. Like, I can't believe it went this way, but what do you have to say about this? Because I did not see it going this way. I think we kind of all, the consensus was Lob City was going to find a way to win just from their history. But what my favorite question to start interviews with, what the heck happened?
Yeah, this is one of those games that coaches tell you, like, you always got to watch the film, even if you win. I don't think you watched the film on this one. They just didn't play their Watch the boys just didn't play their style of basketball. They're usually knocking down their threes. They weren't falling, and they kept taking them. They weren't falling. The twos weren't falling. Hendel and Kashawn just had awful games. It was just not a game that they're going to want to think back on, and I don't think they should. I think they should look forward. They're a 6-1 team. Probably win next week. Coming in as they're going to come in as the 2 seed, so they're going to get a pretty good first round matchup. As for Lob City, they look amazing. Everyone just plays their roles. They know Noah's their best player. Cody and Almar play the 2-3 roles great on that team. They contribute what they need to, and then both the Joshes, they know they're not going to they're not going to take more than they both took 6 shots, but they're expected to come in the game and not even take a shot, and they still play their ass off. So
the seeding, you stole my thunder. Yeah, the good news is the washed up boys still the 2 seed. They're locked into that because they beat the Road Dogs, who are securely in that 3 spot because the tiebreaker's head to head, and A lot of the teams, and almost all the teams, played everybody once, so it makes it easy. Even if Lob City was to lose next week and Washed Up Boys were to win, they have the head-to-head. So the 1, 2, and 3 are locked, which means the Road Dogs and Washed Up Boys are on a crash course to potentially meet again in the semifinals. And it was the Washed Up Boys winning that regular season matchup in Week 4 by 9. So it's very cool to have these matchups to go off of as we preview some of these. Not that history always repeats itself, but you can see how people did. And so, if we get a rematch between Lob City and the Washed Up Boys, we're not really going to be able to take this game, I don't think, for anything going into that. So it'll kind of be like throw this one out and try it again. But we do know the Washed Up Boys were able to defeat, and that was a close game, but they defeated the Road Dogs in the regular season. So should those teams meet again? But that's kind of how it's falling so far. Lob City, Washed Up, Road Dogs. Let's get to the Road Dogs, who again locked up that 3 seed. 2 losses on the season, and defeated the halfway Crooks in Week 8. I should probably get the score ready. 93-84, the Road Dogs win, and like I said, lock up the 3 seed. The halfway Crooks could have gotten up to 3 if they had won, because then they would have that tiebreaker. They're now in the 4-5. And so, as are the Cold Hearts, because the halfway Crooks beat the Cold Hearts, but then the teams below and above, you can't really catch them. So it's most likely, again, unless there's some way I'm missing something, going to be a Cold Hearts halfway Crooks rematch in, less than 2 weeks from when you're watching this, in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. But first, the Road Dogs looked good. We can kind of flip the order here. We'll go to Burke in a second. Shaq Ardrey with 26. It was a huge second quarter. It was, 31-30 after the first quarter, and both teams hitting shots, getting really whatever they wanted. The Road Dogs missing some bigger guys, but then Burke, the Road Dogs, second quarter, they built up a little bit of a lead and then just kind of kept it at that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, point cushion, and able to kind of just make plays and finish off the halfway Crooks. How'd they do it?
Yeah, they had 3 guys that are probably going to be all over the All-Star ballots. Shaq Audrey, Kevin Views, Kareem Cooper. When you got 3 guys that are just great shot creators, I get the chance to watch Shaq and Kevin possibly twice a week up in the Mass League. Those guys, put them all 3 on the same team. It's so hard to defend them because, they can hit their threes, they can drive to the paint. And you have other guys stepping up like Anthony Lyons with good 14, Rashid Sanchez with 13. It's just hard to beat a team that just has so many guys that can put the ball in the basket.
A good performance, and it almost forced the Road Dogs to go small, and I think that almost helped, especially in this matchup, being able to play Kareem, Shaq, and Kevin for longer stretches together, which they can still do with a 4th guy who's a bigger guy, but being able to play those guys almost with another guard created some mismatches that they were able to exploit on offense and not really get taken advantage of, defensively. Aidan, do you want to do the halfway Crook side of things? I mean, I'll list off some more of the stats for the Crooks. Nick Lemoyne, 29 and 11. Jared Hansen with 21 and 4 threes. 3 of those in the first quarter. I had 9. Who cares? 10 of 22 for the halfway Crooks from 3, which is a good thing. We've talked about that a lot with them. If they're able to make a lot of those shots and drive and kick, that helps their offense. And you saw 84 points from the halfway Crooks. You can go wherever you'd like. I'm putting you on the spot. But the halfway Crooks kept pace. I think it was the defense kept pace, offensively. But what do you think about that?
I think you hit it right on the head. It's the defense, and even it was Nick or even Z, on the sidelines. Just you guys weren't getting defensive stops. You were leaving somebody open in the corner, or open on the wing, and it's okay once or twice a game. But if it's consistent, that's really what happened. The Road Dogs had a lot of open shots, and they made their open shots. You got 3 good players, like you just said, Kareem, Kevin, and Shaq. Shaq only missed 2 shots this whole game. They're all going to make their shots if you leave them open. Now for the Crooks, again, Jared played great. Jared is, maybe he heard me, maybe he didn't, but playoff Jared is coming, and you guys will see it hopefully. But playoff Jared's something different. It's pretty much what it's been the last 2 weeks. But again, it's the defensive side of the ball, I think, for the halfway Crooks. You guys are a good team, but leaving too many people open, too many miscommunications, and there's a lack of accountability on the defensive end. That's all I have to say.
And I think the pace of this one favored the Road Dogs, and I'll get to playoff Jared in a second. But the pace, where they were able to kind of get some fast break, easy ones, didn't help. I mean, it helped for them. They're already making shots, and now they're getting, the 15 to 20 points uncontested by just kind of getting down the floor, 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s. Playoff Jared is no playoff Greg Holt, and he will agree with me. A former Lob City player who, guys, was a very good player, and the first couple seasons was like a key player on the Lob City teams and was like, the third option, doing it all year. And then towards the end, he would, come every other week, was still the same person, but would have 6 points when he would show up in the regular season, would kind of let everyone else eat. Like, I'm just here to hang out. And then in the playoffs would go nuts. And so it was like a flashback. And I was able to, Cody still brings it up, I was able to correctly predict, like, guys, I know, you guys who are watching this for the first time are like, what is this guy talking about? He's crazy. And then in the playoffs, this guy would go off, and it was nice. I like being right. Trent, the Road Dogs, the third seed, looking like they'll be getting the RI Warriors. We'll get there and how that all shakes out next week. The Road Dogs first get the Gym Rats. So, Gym Rats are I think Cam Grilly's playing better. We can get there. We'll preview that in a second. And again, the seeds are kind of already what they are, but still an interesting matchup. What did the Road Dogs do in this one to impress you, Trent?
Well, first thing first, what I will say is, I say this often. If you have about 5 to 6 players that can score in double digits, you're a great team. There's a lot of teams that rely on one player, and when you rely on one player, it's gonna get harder in the postseason. And so when you look at the Road Dogs, they're a complete roster. Kevin View's an MVP candidate, and he's not even scoring as much as he could, and I think he's going to turn it up even more. Shaq Audrey's great. This team overall is a really good roster. Great 3-point shooting team, shooting 50% as a team against this halfway crooks. So I'm looking forward for them in the playoffs, because Kevin Views, I talk to him often, and he's very confident that they're going to win it all in both leagues. So that's what's coming out from Kevin Views. But for the halfway crooks, I just want to say something real quick. No offense to Joey, but if Joey's the third leading scorer on your team, you're most likely not going to win the game.
That's not nice.
Other players need to start hitting, playing a little better. And like I said, Joey was 75%. I mean, he was hitting his shots. This is the most shots I've seen him hit. But I'm just saying, other players need to step up. Terrence Gallo. I need to see Charles Carrera need to start showing up to the games, because he's a big part of this roster. So I'm looking forward to halfway crooks in the postseason. And lastly, about Jared Hansen, I could tell that he in that first quarter he came to show. Like, I mean, the dude couldn't miss a three, and then I seen like the second half he didn't even attempt a three. It seemed like it looked like he just he stopped. And I feel like if he continued to keep getting on the pedal, y'all could have pulled out this victory for sure.
That is enough halfway crook slander. We'll keep it moving. But yeah, so the halfway crooks next week as the 4 or the 5. That can still change, but those two teams play each other anyway. They get the Air Mambas in week 9, and I mentioned the Road Dogs and Gym Rats. All right, our third game from week 8. The Cold Hearts. We just talked about them, and those Gym Rats. A 5-point game, a good game throughout. I think we have some stuff to talk about with this one, but it is the Cold Hearts kind of securing at least that 5 seed with the win over the Gym Rats. 64-59, Cold Hearts over the Gym Rats. And we talked about Cam Grilly. He led the way for the Gym Rats. 25 points for him and 8 rebounds. Carter Clifton, 4 of 8 from 3, becoming, and it's always been there, but just taking more threes, feeling more comfortable, and making a good amount of those for the Cold Hearts. No Justin Bianchi, so, missing a piece for the Cold Hearts, but a 4-man lineup, and this is nothing against Danny Hollowell, who I like as a player because of kind of the things he can do. But you guys know where I'm going. Justin Bianchi, Carter Clifton, Tom DeAndrea, Steven Soulier. That's a good lineup that if they can all be producing, they should be able to, match up with a lot of teams in this league and match up well because of their versatility and size and defense. But they beat the Gym Rats. Aidan, how'd they do it?
I think it's the Carter Clifton show. It was just playing to their strengths. And the Gym Rats were without Aidan Vivero, so they didn't have a big man presence. But the Cold Hearts, like, they're coming off 2 straight losses. You know, they were 3-1, found themselves 3-3. Now they're 4-3. They kind of needed this win. They needed this win to give them a little juice, a little momentum heading into the last week of the season and the playoffs. And I think it was just playing to their strengths. They did, however, miss a shocking 4 to 6 straight free throws in the final quarter of the game. Now, granted, they still won by 5 points. The margin should have probably been 10, but they need to improve on their free throws a little bit. But coming from, that's the only downside to this team, really, is just improving on the free throws. Now, with the Gym Rats, we've talked about them a lot. They're not a bottom of the pack team. They're probably in the middle, but their record shows that they're bottom. And it's just, they play a lot of close games. They can't close out games. They get in a lot of foul trouble. Like, Cam Grilly fouled out towards the end, but it was like, you have 5 fouls. Why are you letting, you have 5 fouls. And it's okay, he knew that. Maybe he wanted to sit out. But if you're a team and you're having your best player who has 5 fouls go out there and foul on the last play and he gets taken out, what kind of game plan is that? You're taking your best player out. So a little game management for the Gym Rats, but the Cold Hearts, they were just hitting their shots. Carter Clifton was everywhere. Steven Soulier is, he gets to his spots, he dishes it, he makes the shots. No Justin Bianchi, like we said. They're going to be a scary team in the future, so it's just they needed this momentum.
Yeah, free throws, especially in the playoffs. And I think almost, who was I saying? Might have been the Gym Rats. They started fouling a little late. And so it's funny, you kind of get in a lot of those situations, and some of these teams are newer, but, Cody says, and apparently Cody Crawford is going to come up 7 times in this show, but I agree and say it. You almost have to start fouling like over a minute left if you're down like 4 or 6. Like, it's weird, and you almost want to wait and try to get a stop, but there's no shot clock. And the reason is because, sure, it's still a free throw, but you're so much closer, people are kind of more likely to miss, and then you get the ball back, and they haven't scored 2 points. Or like giving up a point to get the ball back is a trade you will do, because if you can go score, you're now making up ground, right? So, sure, that's math. That's the easy stuff. But that's to your point about the Cold Hearts kind of missing some free throws, and the pressure only gets, it only mounts from here, right? When we get to the playoffs and we get to more close games. But a good win. And this is not, shit on the Cold Hearts because they have won, you said 2, 1 in a row. They needed this one and defeat the Gym Rats, who are 1-6 and are locked into that 8 spot. Burke, even if you want to kind of give me a bright spot for the Gym Rats, and I might have teased it. I mean, Cam Grilly was hitting shots. He was kind of impacting the game all over. 25 points, 4 made threes, but the Gym Rats are going to get, again, unless I screw something up, Lob City in their quarterfinal matchup, so not an easy matchup. But before then, in Week 9, they get the Road Dogs. And so, again, not an easy matchup, but they have some things they can try to do. What can they take from this one, Burke?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this team doesn't really feel like a 1-6 team. They're able to stay in games with good teams and stuff. It's just how at the end of the game falls. They don't seem to be like a great opening quarter or a closing quarter team, but at times in games they can really just go on runs with Cam Gurley and Brandon Whitman. Like, those guys, if they both get hot in the game, then they can upset a team. I think it's just they're going to need both of those guys to have an efficient game at the same time, which I don't think has really happened this season.
And getting their big man back would help, right? We talked
if
about
he's coming back, yeah.
Sure. No, I know,
Oh.
I know it. Right.
Yeah, hopefully he comes back because he makes that team different. Yeah.
Exactly. Trent, you can go back and go wherever you'd like. I know we kind of didn't let Burke talk about the Cold Hearts. You'll have time. If you'd like to suck up to the Cold Hearts who listen to the show. But yeah, go ahead, Trent. And these Cold Hearts, again, lock up the 4 seed. We get to kind of build the suspense for a rematch in a close game with the Halfway Crooks. Those 2 teams will face off again. But yeah, they needed this one.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very chippy game. Very chippy game at the end. The intensity, you could tell that it's playoff time. The intensity is building up. Players are getting more rallied up, hitting big shots. But for the Cold Hearts, man, that was a good win. Good win just to, even though the matchups are set with Halfway Crooks, correct? Yep. Right. So it's a good win to get momentum heading into the playoffs. If they can close out the season with a victory, and gain momentum, this is good for them. What I'll say about the halfway crooks, man, they have a not halfway crook. I'm sorry, cold hearts.
I was gonna say, hold on.
Yeah,
You
no,
already
no.
slandered. We're not going backwards here. You already slandered enough. We don't do that on this postgame show, okay? For reasons that are pretty clear. Go ahead. Sorry.
Got you. No, but I mean, it was a complete game for them. Especially Carter Clifton, very efficient, shooting 69% from the field. The difference is for them is it's a small difference. They did have more free throw attempts, but they made more free throws than the Gym Rats. And those are just little things that when it's really, really close games, if you make 1 or 2 free throws or less turnovers, whatever the case may be, you can close out the game and win it, of course. So I'm looking forward for the Cold Hearts to continue to keep playing strong, and we'll see what happens with them in their next matchup and against the halfway crooks. And then for the Gym Rats, their rotations need to get better. The coaching situation is a little bit sus, I will say. When I say it's a little bit, they got to fix it, I will say. And they just got to keep their cool, especially Cam Grill. Getting texts in this league, it's not good at all, and overreacting, because when you're losing your best player, now you're affecting your team, and we already don't have your big man. Now you're going down the line in the rotation. It just doesn't help. Even though the game was near over, they need you in the playoffs. So if you do that in the playoffs, it's one game, I believe. So they got to get their act together. Like you said, I think they're better than what their record says, but they got to close it out and win the games. We can't just say they're better. They're still 1-6 at the end of the day. So they got to win. Yeah,
one and done. Little March Madness style. So anything can happen, and especially a lot of these teams, like the Cold Hearts is a 5 seed. They have the talent, right? We talk about the halfway crooks. Like the Road Dogs is a 3 seed. Like, some of these matchups are going to be interesting in the playoffs. We talked about who the Gym Rats get next week because we already talked about the Road Dogs. But the Cold Hearts get a little test against the Washed Up Boys, who I'm sure are not thrilled with how they played last week. So, and the Cold Hearts should be happy with a grinded out performance. So those two teams playing, I'm interested. I think it'll be a good game. I'm sure both teams definitely still want to win, and get some momentum. Right, that's kind of what this is do the right things, get the right habits, make some shots, and get that momentum before we get to the playoffs. And one bad shooting game, and this is not, again, crap on the Washed Up Boys all episode, because the halfway crooks haven't made shots, and any night a team can go cold. You do that in the playoffs, and that's your season, and that's the reality of the playoffs. So that's all it takes. I say it all the time. If we don't miss, you're going to win. If you just how about you don't miss at all? You'll win. So anything can happen, but the Cold Hearts get the win in Week 8. All right, last but definitely not least, Muffin Tops RI Warriors, and a game broke out. Holy crap, a game broke out. A 4-point win for the RI Warriors. That locks them in the 6th spot, so maybe a little different matchup there instead of the 7. So they're still playing kind of. We talked about the best 3 teams in the league, but they are with their bye week in Week 9. The RI Warriors are 3-5, and they're the 6th seed, so that's easy. But the Muffin Tops, I talked about at the end of that game, made some plays, hit some shots. I have, again, this is me doing my homework. Have not looked at the stats, but I can only imagine. Oh yeah. 9 of 46 is the story in this one. A lot of threes taken, not a lot of threes made for the RI Warriors. We need to do some Muffin Tops talk for sure. We'll go around again. So Burke, you can go to the end of the game first. You can go Muffin Tops. I'll do stats later, but what the heck? And I again would like to be on the record. I was like, they got to take a 3. They had the ball 9 seconds left, something like that. 10-ish seconds left, down by 2 with the ball. You just got to pull it. I don't even care. And they have some good shooters. You just got to do it because it gives you a chance to win. They drive it. They make the right play. Don't make the free throws. It happens. But Burke, what? Ultimate, what the heck from, what happened in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Aidan said it before, actually. He's like, I kind of like the Muffin Tops in this one. I was like, really, man? And then when we saw that Kevin Veter wasn't there, we're like, okay, who's going to be the guy? I think it's just because the RI Warriors just shoot so many threes that, if you just make a few threes, just flip the script of the game. But that was a great game to watch. Muffin Tops played great. They shot 46% from the field as a team, which I don't think they've shot even close to that good all season. It was a great game to watch. The one thing about them is they gotta shoot some threes, because I don't know, maybe if these guys, when they watched basketball growing up more, that it wasn't a three-point shooting league, but, you got to shoot more than 2 threes. They went 1 for 2. Maybe if they shoot 10 threes, they make 4 of them, and that's the difference in this game, and they win.
Yeah, 3 is still worth more than 2, right? Even in 2025. Yeah, I know. 1 for 2 from 3, but they were right in this game. All right, we'll save Aidan for last. Trent, the Muffin Tops. Let me give you some stats here. So they got out rebounded, 46-40, but it wasn't killer. 19 offensive rebound. That's the crazy thing. So the RI Warriors had 19 second chance opportunities, right? To the Muffin Tops only getting 6, and still won by 4, right? That's 4 rebounds if the Muffin Tops can grab on defense. That might be enough. 4 or 5 less possessions, and who knows, if the RI Warriors missed another 3 after all those offensive rebounds, then it wouldn't matter because they still didn't get any points. But most likely they got some points on some second chances. And again, it was a 4-point game. Trent, Muffin Tops, man, came to play.
Yeah, Muffin Tops, I told you this Tuesday, Joey, man. They're a fun team just because they go out there and compete. It don't matter if they're playing the best team. It don't matter if they're playing the second or the worst team. It just doesn't matter. They're going to go out there and compete every single night, and they make it a game. Throughout the season, I watched them from the beginning of the year to near the end, and you could tell that they're improving as a team. They're not going to go out there and win championships, but Muffin Tops remind me of a team that if they get you, if you're on a bad night, they can upset you. That's what they can really do. And their leading scorer is Matthew Dagenot, I believe that's how you say his last name. He makes I call him the mid-range merchant. He reminds me of Shea because he just hits tons of mid-ranges and they're contested. And then he gets his team involved. And I'm actually rooting for Michael Berto, man. He reminds me of he's all doing all these street ball moves and all these cool stuff, man. Hopefully he gets into the All-Star game. But they got a lot of old folks out there, and they're just balling, and they made this a game. Unfortunately, they did lose, and there was plenty of opportunities where they could have won this game, especially down the stretch. But, got to give it to RI Warriors at the end of the day because they didn't have their best player. You know what I mean? So it was still tough on their part, having not their best player in Kevin Vuder, who went off the week before. I believe he had 40-plus points. So for him not to be there and RI Warriors still came out with the victory is good for them, man. But this matchup definitely was the matchup of the night, and we definitely did not expect that, man. So looking forward to watch the Muffin Tops going forward just to see if they can upset a team. I'll be rooting for them. I'll say it on the show. But that's how I feel about them.
Yeah, so shout out to the RI Warriors especially because there was a couple times, especially at the end of that game, but a couple times throughout that game where you could feel it. The Muffin Tops were on a little bit of a run, and it's hard to stop that without your best player, without someone to easily create shots. The threes that you're getting wide open aren't falling. It's the world is collapsing in front of you, and they were still able to get the win. So this is not, the world is falling for them. They're the 6th seed. They can get ready for that game. Aidan, yeah, let's do a little more stats here. Yeah, 9 of 46. Hopefully they got all of those out because they will have to make a lot more threes than that when they return against the Road Dogs to stay in that game. Because the Road Dogs are a little bigger than them, and we've already seen that matchup, and that's what happened. The Road Dogs just road dogged them in that one. But Bizal Masood, 23 points and 8 rebounds. Mark DaCosta with 16, and we talked about the three-point shooting. Matt Zagnall, 24. Michael Berto with 15. And I couldn't believe it, but Frank Smith, who was nearly an all-star last year, didn't score in this one either. And he's one of their bigger guys and kind of had an advantage down there. I was just surprised when I was looking at the box scores. Oh, my God, he was there. He was getting rebounds and impacting shots and doing his thing. I couldn't believe it. He's hit threes. He's someone who's actually made some threes and taken some threes for them. He's been able to finish around the rim. I couldn't believe it that they were in this game and he didn't have any points. Aidan, what a game. I don't – go ahead. I'm done.
This, like we all just said, this was a great game. Like Burke said, I said this was the Muffin Tops victory. Now, like we all said, they were down 2 with like 8 seconds left, and like Trent said, I don't know if they don't like to shoot threes because they watched the NBA when there was mainly middies or anything, but also weird thing with the Muffin Tops is maybe they're doing it because they're a little on the older side and they can get tired, but Matt and Berto, I don't think they were on the court together at the same time until the last like 2 minutes. And now I understand that, but I think you should have your 2 leading scorers and your 2 probably best players out there. Jonas Williams too, another good game out there, but it was an interesting game. Always going to pull for the Muffin Tops, a great group of guys, and it's a fun 0-7 team, unfortunately. Now for the Warriors, like we all said, they shot 46 threes. Now if Kevin Vietor was here, that's probably going to be up to around the 54, 55 range. He takes around 6 to 7, maybe close to 10 threes a game. I just got to say, Basil Masood, he's going to live and die by the 3. He shot 23 three-pointers and 1 layup or a mid-range. Same with Mark DaCosta. They accounted for 36 of the 46 attempts, which is kind of crazy. You know, live and die by the 3 is a great rule they take after their Warriors name. But again, I think this was where they kind of needed to go into the paint more and move around because they got a Muffin Tops team where we've talked about the Warriors in the past. They have 3 wins, but they're not great wins. Offensive rebounds too. Jimmy Suwan had 9 offensive rebounds. It just seemed like any time anybody missed, he was there, grabbing it, dishing it out, everything. And then Henry, he was all over the court. The Warriors should be okay with this win. They showed that they can play in a closer game, but it was against the lesser team, no offense to any of the Muffin Tops. But it was just a game that we didn't expect to be really good. And then, like we said, no Kevin Vietor, and it became the game of the night.
We will look ahead to week 9, the last week of the regular season, in a second. I've done a lot of playoff stuff, so the full bracket will be out after week 9, and it's, the traditional seeding. So 1 will play 8, 2 will play 7, 3 will play 6 in the quarterfinals. Usually, every team makes the playoffs, so I'll break some news, but I'm also going to mention this in person on Tuesday night. The scheduling-wise, I would have to delay everything a full week for an 8-9 game to then make kind of a play-in game. So the Muffin Tops are going to have a bye in the quarterfinals and not just have a week off. And then they are actually going to get to pick their opponent for their last game of whichever team is not in the semis, if that makes sense. So we're going to play the quarterfinals. There's going to be 4 other teams plus them who are out. And then they get to their last game, and it's not really in the playoffs, but they get another game. They get to pick and call out somebody to play on that semifinal night, but it would be the Muffin Tops ninth game of the season. So it's an interesting twist. I am interested on who they are going to choose to play. So that'll be something that we will announce and keep an eye out for. We're going to preview the playoffs next week, even though we kind of just did all the seeding for you this one. But we will actually pick matchups and pick winners next week. I'm going to put you guys on the spot for week 9 because week 9 is still happening. There is still games that need to be played. So we're going to go around in a second and pick. You can do more than one word, but we're going to keep it short. This is a long episode, but there was a lot to talk about. You get to pick one matchup and what you're most interested to look for in that matchup. So you kind of have to pick something like an X factor of the game. Doesn't have to be a player, but the X factor of the game coming up in week 9. All right, Aidan first, because he's a professional at this. Putting you on the spot. Pick a matchup from week 9. Road Dogs, Gym Rats. Halfway Crooks, Air Mambas. Cold Hearts versus Washed Up Boys. Lob City, Muffin Tops are your week 9 matchups. Aidan, which one and what are you looking for?
I'm going to take it from the other 2. My apologies. It's the Washed Up Boys and Cold Hearts. And I'm just looking to see how the Washed Up Boys bounce back after 2 pretty bad performances. And to see how the Cold Hearts do with that 1-win momentum. And if Justin Bianchi is back. It's just kind of both teams are, Washed Up Boys coming off 2 losses. Cold Hearts coming off a win. Both teams still want to get that last win. So I think the key is I want to see how hungry the Washed Up Boys are.
All right, I'm going to Burke next. And Burke, I don't bribe anybody, but I'll give you a lot of money to not let Trent slander the halfway crooks anymore. Okay, so pick a different matchup, but if you know what's good for you, maybe talk about the halfway crooks and their mamas. But no, go wherever you'd like. But which matchup and what are you looking for?
Well, Aidan took my matchup. I was going to do Cold Hearts, Washed Up Boys, but when I was looking around at the other matchups, I saw Halfway Crooks Air Mambas. Tough game, 84 points. Like you hate to lose a game like that. I think against the Air Mambas, who shoot a lot of threes, I think they should look to just play really good defense because offensively, Halfway Crooks are a better team. X factor, I think, is Jared Hansen, who had a good game last week, but like you said, he goes different in the playoffs, and you can't go from just shooting 11 shots then taking 20, 25. So I think he should step up this week and just, get that shot right, even though it has been, but really just take a lot of attempts. So maybe if he's a little cold, he gets that out of him, or if he's hot, he stays hot, and he has a really good game.
With all due respect, screw you, Trent. No more halfway crook slander for you. This is actually a rematch where the halfway crooks won by 2 in week 4. And if you look at that fourth quarter, the Air Mambas won the fourth quarter. And it was a game that was like a double-digit game kind of throughout the second half. 8, 10 points, 12 points. Never really a blowout. And then just some things started bouncing, and the Air Mambas almost pulled that off in week 4. And that would have shook some things up in the standings had the Air Mambas been able to win. All right, Trent. We talked a lot about the Muffin Top, so you can leave out Muffin Tops Lob City. So, Road Dogs, Gym Rats. You've already, you love your Kevin views, so if you'd like to continue on that trend. No, but what are you looking for in that matchup?
No, I was actually going to choose the Gym Rats and Road Dogs, to be honest with you. The reason why I chose it was because losing a game like that is definitely tough, and those are the type of games heading into the playoffs that can make or break your team. So I'm looking to see them bounce back against the Road Dogs, and hopefully they don't get punked anymore by any teams, because at the end they definitely got a little bit. They got bullied, and you just can't allow that, man. You got to put your foot down and beat these teams.
Some good matchups in week 9. It kind of stinks that everything's already set up, but I'm sure it'll still be entertaining and stuff to look forward to. Good job, guys. All right, so week 9, and then we have our quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. You guys talked about it. We're doing some end-of-season award voting, which are kind of based on the regular season, which is why it's happening now. We'll be announcing All-Stars. The All-Star game is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, March 11th. I say it that way because if we get some snow and everything just gets pushed back, then it will no longer be March 11th. It's the last thing we do after the playoffs, so everyone can be there for All-Star Night. We'll be voting on that, MVP, all first team. So we have some stuff to figure out, and so week 9 definitely kind of plays a little factor in that awards and the stats and everything. But I'm excited for the playoffs. Some good matchups, and should be some good semifinals. Should be a good finals matchup. Kind of whoever advances that far. We have a lot to talk about before that, though. We're saving it for next week. We will pick those matchups. We'll put you guys on the spot. But good job, Aidan, Trent, Burke. I'm Joey. Everybody, thanks for watching.